I was born in Kane, Pennsylvania, in February 3rd, 1935. Every household, or every 2 households, had a gun. Mm-hmm. And they didn't shoot deer at night, shot them in the daytime. And that was the meat. That was the beef. We used to call it speed beef. My mother was an expert cook anyway, you know. There was 4 of us boys. I grew up I was a pretty good boxer, let's put it that way. But, you know, growing up in a small town is when you stop and think about it, was real privilege. But my dad, I know my brother was a favorite, you know, obviously. But he didn't treat any of us any different. Jamestown, everybody from Kane or down in that, we used to come up this way to try to get a job. Crescent Tool, all them places, you know. And so when I had an opportunity to go in there and be a plasterer's apprentice, which believe me was no cake shot by any match, because I had to mix plaster for 2 guys and then have a board and a table and a scaffold set up in another room for me, and I didn't know from Shinola. And they used to holler, "Marmad!" Well, I had that mixer going 24/7, you know, and I had to work 4,000 hours to get a book, a union book. The day I became a journeyman, the scale was $4.50 an hour. That was way more than anybody was making in a factory around here. I became the business agent for the Plasterers and Cement Masons Union. I was 22 years old. Well, that was unheard of in Jamestown. Wow. You had to be old and miserable and everything. But I was young and tough. They merged, the International got together and they merged the plasterers and bricklayers. Well, I didn't want any part of that merger. So I got a call to come to Washington, D.C. and say they heard that I was going to fight this. I went before a guy by the name of John Hawk, and he said to me, "Bloomquist, I understand you're going to fight the thing." I said, "I think it's wrong." And he says, "Well, if you keep it up, you're going to find out that you're going to be about 1.5 yards of the Potomac River." I said, "That's your choice. But don't ever say that in my territory." I got the threat, and I turned around and walked out, and he said, "Just remember what I told you." And I said, "I want you to remember what I told you back." 10 days later, in comes the business agent from Buffalo. And he says, "Don, what they really want is they want the money that you have in your treasury." I said, "There ain't no money." He said, "What do you mean?" He said, "They got your audit." I said, "I know they got my audit, but there's no money." He said, "Well, you're going to have to explain where it went." And I said, "Very easy, very simple. My desk, I donated it all to the Cancer Society through WCA Hospital. Every damn dime." So I said, "Now you go back and tell that crusty old bastard out there that I've just launched a shot at him, and if he wants to take one at me, go for it." That was the end of it. How are they going to fight me? No, they're not going to fight me. I was out of work, right? There's a brotherhood there that, you know, you're either on or you're off. So I was off. Went to the ironworkers, came back to Jamestown on the same day and went to work on the Chautauqua Mall on structural steel. It was easy for me to become an ironworker. Yeah. So they run a welding school in Erie, and I became a certified welder. I went to work for American Bridge, and I built every bridge on that expressway. From Jamestown to the line.
You're known for being such a connector. When you first heard that there was going to be a group that might be interested in the Scottish Rite Consistory, what did you think?
Being a 32nd degree, yep. I knew what was on the table. Me being a kind of wise little chicken, I could read more between the lines than anything, and I knew exactly what you needed. I knew exactly, you needed time, because you were out there hunting for money. which is the biggest chore that they can ever put you through, as you well know. And I said, well, we'll do it. And I never talked to you about this. I don't think I did anyway. About going in, and I can remember walking in the front door. That front door hadn't been open in 10 years, I swear, you know. And I go in there, and I walked in that front door, and I walked halfway down the hallway, and then I went into the boardroom. Everything was filthy. And then I came to you and I said, we got to clean this up. And I don't even know if I don't think anybody ever really knew this, but I'd take these welfare workers in, and they had to work for me. And then, you remember all the sabers and...
Yeah.
Those two stools out front must have had 10 each in there. So I get these guys, and now I've got the biggest thieves in the world working for me, right? So I get them down there, and if I ever catch anybody back here that ain't supposed to be here, look out.
We bought the place, by the way, in April of 2001.
Yeah.
And then we had our first event, May 1st, 2001, with Gene Gerhardt, the biographer. You were so involved in making sure that we kept on task.
Well, you're largely was the driving force, and all I had to do is follow your lead. Really, sometimes I had to run hard and fast to keep up to you, but I did. And I remember that Melise woman. She was a real pretty girl, and she said, "You're never going to have this ready, are you?" And I said, "Watch my lips."
Pictures of the inner group, the Carl Kappa, Betty Linnaeus, Dan Braddens, Harold Adams,
Yeah.
Don Bloomquist. I mean, you were right there. Day one.
And find out the other side of the coin, so to speak. Those are the two that you blend with the New York.
Gives us an idea of what it's going to cost to get this thing fixed.
Our architect would probably do, our architect would come in and do a drawing of this building, its completeness, and then we'd sit down at the committee and go through here and say, what do you want changed? The carpet's got to go, obviously.
They want to build, I would say, like a memorial to Robert Jackson for all he's done and what he's created in his life. And I said, and I couldn't find it. There isn't another building in any place around here that would fit better than that.
One of the things I remember, you magically saving the day when scheduled for May 17th, 2003 was the appearance of Chief Justice William Rehnquist. Unheard of that the Chief Justice would come. And we spent months. I went back and saw the diary, literally started about a year ahead of time thinking about this, and never anticipating that a few days ahead of time the weather report.
You had to admit, we had just seeded that lawn, right?
I know that.
It was soft. If you walked out there with shoes, you'd be over your shoes. So I said, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I go down to...
Chautauqua brick?
Yeah, Chautauqua brick. I said, I need 20 sheets of plywood, and I'll bring them back to you. What do you mean bring them back to me? I said, told the guy what I had to have. He said, geez, I don't know if we can do that or not. And I said, let me put it to you this way. There won't be any mud on them. So as you, I don't know if you recall this, I put black tar paper all over the lawn. I put the plywood down, put the chairs on them, and I made them guys walk on the chairs so that they would be embedded so that somebody set them on, they were over me.
Another thing I remember, we put in the handicapped accessibility.
Yep.
There was a door. There's a door way down, which was an entry to the consistory. And you called me. I came down there with cameras, all of this stuff, because I said, man, this is cool. And you said, Greg, go down, take lots of pictures. This is really wonderful. But don't tell anybody, because we're putting in this handicapped accessibility. So I've got a wonderful array of pictures.
Did you ever read the lore behind that?
No, tell me.
Oh my God, it's wonderful. That's why I was always so interested in keeping that. I got to tell you why. According to the lore, that Mrs. every morning before church, she'd watch the ladies going to church. And then she would go upstairs and dress. And she came into the church through the bottom. The lore says that she came in and then she went up to her seat. That project meant a lot to me. It was part of me. And I wanted it to be dress right dress all the way. And as far as I'm concerned, it was, okay?
Thank you, Don. What you did was incredible.
But if you're just a contractor, you can be so incredible. But if you really want it, you got to go the other direction a lot. You know?
You did, and you did so many times. Thank you.